Hi everyone, it's Dan Clark here from the Big Leagues Daily with your 2020 World Series preview, proudly brought to you by Pickswise, the number one place for free picks, sports news and expert best bets. I'm really lucky to be joined today by a guy who knows plenty about Major League Baseball. He's pitched in 82 games himself for 5 ball clubs in the major leagues. Travis Blackley, how's things, man? Excited and looking forward to the World Series?
I sure am, Dan. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. So what are your thoughts been so far? You've been really engaging in the baseball life this year. I've seen you've been pretty active on Twitter, and obviously your A's had a pretty good season.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been some great baseball so far. Anytime you get some 7-game series going down to the wire, you can't be mad about that. And as a fan watching the game, it's great to see. And a lot of people that, maybe weren't baseball fans are now starting to come in and be interested by the sport.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Well, let's get down to business. So, 2 teams. Got the Tampa Bay Rays, who, for a while there, we weren't even sure they were going to sneak in. They just got over the Astros in the end, but look, they've been pretty good this year. They did really well in the American League East, especially against the probably more fancied Yankees. They easily took care of the Blue Jays in the wild card round, winning that in 2 games. They had to battle then in the division series against the Yankees, but they ultimately came through in that all-important 5th game, something which I certainly didn't expect to see happen. And then, as I said, they got a 3-0 lead over the Astros and looked like running away with it there. But to their credit, the Astros, they fought back. They've got a really good lineup, as we know, and ultimately came good in Game 7, having lost 4, 5, and 6. So it's good to see the Rays get through, personally. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, myself included. I'm obviously a fan of the Rays, and I actually was one of the few, I think, that had them going into the World Series. Obviously, I thought their biggest hurdle would have been New York, but the way they handled them during the season, and I think the confidence they took into that series was big for them, and it showed. And, I think once they got through the famous New York Yankees, they were able to kind of take a breath and be like, well, it ain't going to get that much harder than that. So,
yeah.
Obviously facing the Astros, have a very good lineup, and their pitching really stood up for them in that series, keeping them in it and making it a 7-game series. And I think whenever you're playing for that last win and you've got that many games in hand, it's very easy to play not to lose rather than play to win. And I felt like that was kind of the way they were taking it. And then when it got down to that, everything out on the table, try and, win that one game, they really stood up to the occasion, which is going to say a lot for them going forward and give them confidence going into the World Series.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we talk about the Yankees and how impressive they are. Geez, they've got another challenge ahead of them with the Dodgers, and I guess similar to the Rays, they they had to battle in that championship series. Early on, they in the postseason, obviously after a really strong regular season, they swept the Brewers aside very easily. Much to my surprise, they completely ran over the Padres. There were some good games in there, but ultimately they won it in 3. And then they had to battle back themselves from 3-1 down against the Braves, who again are a really strong team. And it's going to be a fascinating series to see just who, because obviously we've got the short rest as well, which I might ask you about as a pitcher. It's obviously a lot harder to back up. And do you think that'll favour anyone or?
I think both teams are kind of beat up when it comes to that. Having to go to certain pitches in certain situations. I think that neither team is going to be able to go in, with the exact rotation that they're looking for. I think the Rays kind of have a bit of a favor in the first game because they're going to be able to wheel out Glasnow, probably Game 1, whereas the Dodgers aren't going to be able to put Buehler out there Game 1. They're probably going to, if I were to guess, maybe go with Kershaw. He seems like he might be the one with the most, the most amount of days off. So, but again, very established pitcher, and he's a Hall of Famer in anyone's eyes. And then both bullpens have done a lot of work. So, they were saying before today's game that Gratterol was coming down with a sore arm, but he first went out there throwing 101 miles an hour. So how sore could it be?
Yeah.
But they, it's very hard to kind of pick a team. Do you look at the rotation? Well, you might sort of slightly give that to the Rays.
Yeah.
For the 1, 2, 3.
especially the way Morton's been pitching. I think he's the first pitcher in history to have 3 Game 7 wins.
Yeah, I think four. Well, no, yeah, 4 win or die games, do or die games. But yeah, so, I kind of slightly favor them in the starting rotation based solely on, the performances of their starting pitchers and how deep they've been able to go. Bullpen wise, you might also sling that to the Rays, but with the workload that they had to pick up in last series, that might also not favor them. Whereas I've got lineups obviously favoring, the Dodgers, and the depth of their lineup is incredible. So, it's going to be an awesome series to watch, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, and look, one thing which I think will be interesting as well. Obviously, they've been, both the rotation as well as the bullpen have been really heavily worked this postseason with very. We do got to remember as well, it was only a 60-game regular season, which is probably, guys like Kershaw, for example, he's probably feeling really fresh. It's probably only feeling like June for him at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But look, from a Ray, let's shift our focus to the Rays a bit. Some of the big talking points are there, I think there are, and this is something you can probably relate to with your days in Oakland. They're a low-budget team. They always have been. I think their payroll's 28th in the major leagues at the moment. They have that real analytical focus, very smart roster creation, bit of that Moneyball approach. Do you remember that from your time in Oakland, which is, I guess, pretty similar from the Rays' perspective?
I mean, yeah, when I joined Oakland, they were already famous for that style of the way setting up their team like that, and mainly it wasn't by choice, but more they had to come up with a way to be able to compete with the big market teams with the lower payroll. And, staying away from the big high dollar, flashy names, and being able to maybe get 2 or 3 guys that could platoon, to come up with somewhat of a similar, outcome, maybe not with home runs, but with just production of runs overall. So, I mean, very similar in that sense. A lot of castaways, you could call them, guys that were with other organizations that never stuck as the starter. Coming to mind would be Zunino. Mariners guy, catcher for them, didn't quite pan out in his career there. Goes over to the Rays with a second chance, and sort of also similar to d'Arnaud. Another guy that never really he was a starter, but he didn't quite stick as much as I think he'd like to, and he found a home with the Braves. So. Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. You don't often see that style of team this deep in the postseason, so I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, and you mentioned Zunino. He's had a fantastic postseason. He's hitting some home runs. He's really giving him something of value down there on that bottom part of the lineup. So let's keep an eye on him. And if I was to give you 2 key bets for the Rays lineup, I'd be saying Zunino is going to go yard a couple of times, and the next guy I'm going to talk about, Arozarena. Now, this rookie sensation has obviously been impacted by COVID early in the season. He's come out and made a name for himself. Just looking at the stats now, he had 21 hits already in this postseason, 11 them for extra bases, 7 home runs, 10 RBI. I think if the Rays are going to score enough runs to beat such a powerful Dodgers team, he's going to have to continue that hot streak. And again, don't be surprised from an MVP perspective. If the Rays get up, this guy's going to be the guy to lead them there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think from the hitting side of the standpoint, he's definitely the guy that's going to have to carry them. But it's also going to rely on the other guys to get on base in front of him.
Yeah.
They're going to need their Wendells and their Brosos and, other guys like that. I think that Choi is going to be a big guy in that lineup too. He seemed to come through quite clutch for them. Margot is obviously another guy that can hurt you with the bat.
Kiermaier.
Kiermaier. These guys need to get on base so that the boppers can bring him in, and that's you can handle giving up the solo home run as a pitcher for the Dodgers because your team's probably going to give you a few. So stay away from the big inning and the big 3-4 run home run. So I think that's going to be a thing. But I think also you shouldn't look past the pitching. If you can get 2 wins in the World Series and, go deep in your games, you can definitely be an MVP of the World Series. And, I think, off my head, Randy Johnson back in 2001, was it? Yeah, 2001 for the Diamondbacks. He won an MVP.
Yep.
So, I think that Urias would have been a real shot at the MVP for the NLCS had Seager not had the series he had. So, yeah, and I think he had 3 wins.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm going to touch on Seager later because I know he's your guy.
Mm-hmm.
You've been calling it for weeks now, and he's been sensational. And just on the MVP and looking at a pitching perspective, obviously we touched on the Rays rotation, Yarbrough, Glasnow, Snell,
Morton.
and Morton. Now, Morton's a guy who potentially his last season of, in the major leagues, he's been brilliant up until now. He's a guy to keep an eye on as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's no one else you want with the ball in the do or die game, right? I mean, he's proven it. As far as having his last season, I don't know if that's the case. I really think he is a guy that now that he's going to be a big guy for a team down the stretch. And maybe the regular season games, he's not able to maybe get up with the adrenaline like he is in those other games. Like he gets in the World Series in the regular season. So, yeah, I think that he will be offered a job for sure. It'll be up to him whether he wants to take it or not. And I mean, if I'm a GM for a team, like the A's or even like the Angels, who might not have the space, like I'm definitely giving him. And who wouldn't want to pitch for the Angels with their lineup behind them? They're going to get some run support.
Plenty of support, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if we had to pick an MVP candidate from the Rays, let's say they get up, I'm probably going to go with Arozarena. I reckon he's going to continue it on. He just looks sensational at the moment. He obviously hasn't had a lot of work this year. He's fresh. I think I'm going with him. What about you? You're going to go pitcher, aren't you?
I mean, he's the safest bet, I'd say, out of the Rays, just based on purely how he's played. I think if you were to pick a pitcher, it's going to come down to maybe, it could be any of those 3, I would say. Obviously Snell's a chance, Glasnow's a chance, but Charlie Morton, I mean, if he gets the ball twice and gives them 2 wins and happens to, obviously get them through and win that big last game, it's going to be hard. It's going to depend on the production from the hitters. Is it going to be a pitching series where it's dominated by pitching? Then he's going to have a real good chance. Or is it going to be, all on the bats? And then I would obviously say Arozarena is probably the guy to go with.
Yeah. Now, shifting focus over the Dodgers, again, absolutely standouts during the regular season and returning to the World Series yet again. They've had so many opportunities now to take that next step. They've been in 3 out of the last 4. They've won the division 8 years in a row now. For me, it feels like it's time. I think at the start of the year, I said the Yankees and the Dodgers. Obviously, the Yankees didn't get through. I think it has to be this year. There's too many excuses. And we've talked about the rotation. Let's look at that a little bit more closely. Buehler and Kershaw, the big 2. Kershaw, now I know you've faced off one-on-one with him and did pretty well. With Kershaw, though, there is always that stigma, and I guess he's probably not so much his lack of success, but definitely his record is not as good in the postseason historically as it is in the regular season. What do you think he needs to do, and do you think he can step up and become that guy that they want?
Well, I mean, that's going to come down to performance. Obviously, he's going to have to give his team the best chance to win he can in every game he takes the ball. But it's also, I think, going to fall back on Roberts a little bit on how he manages Kershaw. Looking back at his last game, he was, again, given a bit of a bad rap for having that so-called choking in the playoffs. But, he gave you 15 solid outs and for 1 run. I mean, that in today's game is enough to, hand it over to their bullpen and get a win. And you tried to maybe bite off a bit more than you could chew in that one particular moment, and that 6th inning obviously turned into 2 more runs onto his stat line that probably shouldn't have been there. And let's say Gratterol gets out of that inning like he does most of the time. Everyone's still looking at Kershaw like he had a great game. So, I think he's due for a big game. I mean, and I think his moment has come, for him to really stand up and say, listen, I am one of the best pitchers of my generation, and I belong. I mean, issue in Hall of Fame wise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think that, having some rough outings in the postseason should stand against him for what he's done strictly in his whole career. But let's look back just to his recent game against the Padres. I mean, didn't he go 8 innings with 13 strikeouts?
Brewers, I think.
Was that the Brewers?
Yeah, I think it was
well,
the Brewers.
Even still.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The game he had against the Padres, he went 6 solid, went back out for the 7th or something, gave up back-to-back home runs, but still came out with the lead in hand. That situation with nobody on base, you can handle giving up the solo shot. Yes, he gave up 2 in a row, but you're attacking the hitter. At least you're not walking them and letting them start some kind of rally. So, he at least did it by the book, how you're supposed to as a pitcher, and that is attack the guys. So, I mean, it's going to be on him, but I think Buehler's going to be the man. We just saw him throw a great game. He's got electric stuff. I mean, very Verlander-esque in his stuff. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I would be very happy having him have the ball. I'd feel very confident winning a game with him. Who else they got? They got
May, who got a pretty quick hook today, and they got Gonsolin as well. I think they've got a few of those options. I think it's, as you said, it's going to be really interesting to see how Dave Roberts manages it. And look, that guy's under pressure. He divides opinion in LA. Some people love him, a lot of people don't know, and he needs to deliver them for the championship.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to how they use Urias. I would personally start the kid.
I'm starting too. Yeah.
I mean, yes, he did great today, and if you're getting to Game 7 and he's available to give you a few innings, I'd put the ball in his hand. He's shown he's got some cojones, as they like to call it in Mexico. But he's a bull, and he's not afraid of anyone. I've known him personally through Mexico, seeing him as a youngster coming up, and he's something special to watch out for in the future. And again, if he plays like he did in this last series, throws up that he could be a chance at MVP. 3 wins in the NLCS. That was pretty amazing. So if you used him as a starter and really pushed him to give you 6 innings, and hand it over. It's going to be, I would say, though, the Dodgers back of the bullpen, even though they've had a pretty decent postseason so far, that is the one where you kind of, and I'll mention Kenley. Kenley Jensen, he's obviously not the guy he used to be. He used to be a 97, 98 mile an hour cutter guy, and now he's a 91, 93 cutter guy. And if it's not cutting, he's not going to get you to the inning. Yeah. And he's also got the pressure of past failures. In the postseason. So he's got that kind of hump to get over himself, but he looked great in the NLCS. When the 2 times he got the ball, he had a 3 punch-out inning and a 6-pitch closing out both times. So I think he's going to be a guy to watch, and he'll be a big part of their success going forward.
Yeah, and look, I was a bit surprised about how well he did pitch, because he wasn't very good against the Padres, and he had his moments during the regular season as well. You got Gratterall, obviously he's been quite impressive. Trinan, was he in Oakland when you were there?
No, he wasn't, but he's been one of my favorite relievers to watch when he was with Oakland. Again, another guy that's super sinking bowling balls, just heavy, hard-riding sinkers. But he's also got some pretty good off-speed pitches to go with it, and he's a guy that attacks the zone. So he's going to be big for them. Kelly's going to be big for them.
Huge. Yeah.
We haven't seen Kelly with his 100-mile-an-hour stuff this year. He's been pretty good in the 95 to 97 range, but, that extra 3 mile an hour makes a big difference, over that 60 feet, 6 inches. So, but I mean, he's also been a horse for them in the past, and he was for Boston when they won it. So, we've...
that X factor, couldn't he? He's... baseball's favorite pitcher at the moment, probably favorite player, definitely a crowd favorite in LA because of his antics with the Astros. Now, if we look at the lineup, it's probably next to the Yankees, the best lineup in baseball. They went out and got Mookie Betts. They got Codey Bellinger, Justin Turner, Max Muncy. The list goes on. And then your guy, Corey Seager. Yeah. You've been talking about him all postseason.
Yeah, all season.
All season. And
he was my NL pick. He was my NL MVP pick before the season. Yeah. Everyone was kind of throwing it at Mookie to do it. And he had a great season. I think he only had one more home run than Seager, but he didn't. I think he hit about in the upper 290s. I think Seager had a 320 odd batting average for the season with 15, 16 homers and a bunch of runs driven in. I was surprised he wasn't in the conversation for NL MVP. But I mean, obviously Freddie Freeman had a great season. I mean, it's hard to beat that. He would have been people's choices too, going into the season. But as far as the lineup of the Dodgers goes, I would actually have them. I personally have them better than the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees win with home runs. The Dodgers win with home runs, and they win with just scoring. And their bench hitting is better, in my opinion. You got Kike Hernandez, Jock Peterson. These guys are big time hitters in big games. Yeah. I mean, they've just got so many weapons to choose from, and there's barely an out on their team. And then they've got Will Smith, who's just made a name for himself in the last, 2 weeks or so. So it's going to be interesting. But Corey Seager's definitely, obviously he showed what he can do, and I'm really happy for him that he finally gets the recognition he deserves. Obviously last year when Bellinger won the MVP, I've always thought that Seager was the best hitter on the Dodgers lineup, and he was injured last year, so he really got kind of forgotten about while hurt. And Bellinger had such a great year that he just got taken out of the conversation. And you just look at him, what he's done this year. He clearly outperformed Bellinger during the year, and he's done it again in the postseason. So, I think he definitely could have an MVP before his career is over.
Yeah. And look, I think the last key point on the Dodgers is the defense. We've seen, especially in the outfield, Bellinger, Mookie Betts, they've made some absolutely sensational plays, robbing teams of runs. Now, if they can continue that, coupled with some pretty consistent performers, Kershaw, Buehler, we're going to get some, at worst, we're probably going to get a quality stat out of those guys. And with that lineup, I think they're going to be pretty hard to beat. Defense, pitching, it's the old cliche that wins you championships. Do you see it being a relatively high scoring or relatively low scoring series?
Wow. I mean, I think we're going to see a mix. I think we're going to see a couple of games with some high scoring efforts. I think we're going to see some games that are a little more tense and close, like low scoring 3-2 kind of game. I mean, it's going to be a really fun series, and I'm excited for it for sure.
All right. I'm going to push you for 2 tips. World Series MVP if it was the Dodgers to win?
Honestly, I think Mookie Betts. And this is only because he really started picking up the stick the last few games of the series. I think he's about to break out. I think Corey Seager is going to probably not quite be as hot, but because I think that the Rays are going to focus on trying to hold him down. But I still think he's going to get some pitches to hit. I mean, he's got guys behind him that you can't afford to put him on base to then face Bellinger or Muncy or someone like that who are great fastball hitters. So that's another reason for his success is he's got so much, behind him in the lineup that you have to kind of throw to him. So obviously he's a choice. He'd be a great choice. Bellinger obviously had a big knock, but he's normally one of those guys I feel like that might get that big knock, but he might not do a whole lot on their side.
Recently,
Muncy has had some big postseason knocks, and obviously you're looking at guys like Kike and Jock that can come off the bench and do crazy things. But as far as MVP, I would stick with a hitter in this one for the Dodgers. And I think Mookie Betts would be a safe one. I think Corey Seager would be a safe one. They'd be my 1 and 2. And Buehler would probably be my pick pitching wise.
I'll go a little bit different. I'm going to go with, if it's a pitcher, which I don't think it will be, but let's say it was, I'd go Kershaw. And the only reason I have a little bit of hesitation around that is because he has been carrying a little bit of a niggle here and there. So I'm not sure how he's going to recover and whether they get those 2 starts or maybe even some long relief out of him if the situation calls for maybe like a Bumgarner type World Series, that phenomenal year he had. And from a hitting point of view, I'm going to go with Bellinger. I reckon he's going to bust some games open. He's going to have some 3-run shots, multiple home runs. I'm going to go with him. Now,
can I throw a dark horse in there? I want a dark horse. I want to go Will Smith.
Yeah, well, he had a 5-hit game the other week.
And he's been driving in runs when, like today, I think it was, he got the 2 RBI single. He's a guy that puts the ball in play, and he's obviously always seems to come up with a lot of runners on base, so he could drive in a lot of runs. And he's kind of the guy that, as a pitcher, you get through the meat and you might relax a little bit. You might go, oh, I got through the heart of the lineup. Here's Will Smith. You let your guard down for 1 second, and he drives a double in the gap, and then all of a sudden, he's the guy that busts it open. So he also could be that outside high odds kind of guy to, get a good payout on if you pick him.
It talks to the strength of the lineup, doesn't it? Like, I mean, we're just reeling off guys left, right, and center. There's just so many options there. All right. In terms of series predictions, who's going to win how many games?
Well, this is the first World Series in a long time. I haven't really had a team I want to win over the other. I think both teams, I'd be very happy seeing either team. I'd love to see the Rays get over the line, but I'd also love to see the Dodgers finally break through, and I'd love to see Kershaw at least get that 1 ring in his career. I'm going to go with the Dodgers, and I'm going to give the Rays somewhat of a chance to push them, so I'm going to pick it in 6.
Oh, you're reading my notes. I'm going to say exactly the same. So I'm thinking the same. Dodgers in 6. I think the Rays are going to win a couple here and there, and I think it's going to be on the back of the pitching, as we touched on. In terms of some of the correct score markets which are out there, I think really pay attention to, so fans out there who want to have a bit of a bet, really pay attention to the pitching lineup, the matchups. If you've got Kershaw and Morton, you're not going to have a huge amount of runs being scored. Buehler, et cetera, Glasnow. So have a look at that. But those days where you might be looking at that back end of the rotation, or maybe some of those bullpen games, I think you're probably going to see a lot more runs being scored. 8 6s, maybe even 9 7s, those type of things. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Dodgers in 6 as well. But don't get me wrong, I'd love to see the Rays get up. It'd be really good for baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it go 7. And I just want to draw on too, when the Dodgers have been in the World Series. I remember, I think it was the Astros would have been 17, right? They and also the series against the Red Sox, there were some games. There was one game, I think, against the Astros went like 14, 15 innings, and teams were taking a 3-run lead in the 12th only to give it back up in the bottom of the 12th. And one game went like 5.5, 6 hours or something like that. And that could definitely be something that happens in this series.
All right, so Trav, let's just summarize your picks. Dodgers in 6.
Dodgers in 6.
Mookie Betts MVP.
Mookie Betts MVP is my pick for the Dodgers if they get through. I will go with, who did I say? Glasnow. I'm going to pick Glasnow as a pitcher. If they get through, it's going to take great pitching to beat the Dodgers. I think Glasnow.
All right, I'm going with Dodgers in 6. I'm going with Bellinger. If the Rays were to get up, a Rosarino, I think they're going to have to score a fair few runs, and he's going to have to be the man. All right, look, thanks, Trav. Really enjoyed having the chat with you. Look, fans, wish you all a wonderful World Series. It's been a really tough year for baseball fans. We haven't had as much content as we always want. I'm surprised we got this far. Thankfully, we did. And as always, keep an eye out for some great new MLB content coming soon with Picks-wise. Some fantastic tips, fantastic news. And, we'll all speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And, enjoy your World Series. And when the season's over and you're looking for some baseball, come and check out the Australian Baseball League.
Yeah. Everyone, look, thanks. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Trav, and we really appreciate your insights, and hopefully some fans can take some ideas out of that. And as always, gamble responsibly.